games, and here we see Caruana back at the board. I can't wait till this third round.
Magnus Carlsen loves a challenge, and a challenge it is. The best version of Fabiano Caruana has shown up to this semi-finals match. Magnus, will he start with 1e4, an opening that did get him into trouble in game 1? The players are ready to go. Are we expecting Magnus to switch it up on move 1?
Maybe. The first game didn't go according to plan for the world number 1, but he is quite a loyal adherent of 1e4, and I think the big question is whether we'll see the Archangel again, this variation of the Spanish. It looks that way. Magnus Carlsen repeating his opening from the first game.
And Bishop, where is... He goes for it. He sticks to the tried and tested. His scores, the Archangels, which worked to perfection in game 1.
It was nothing about the opening that got Fabiano into trouble, but let's remember, Magnus did get an advantage at some point, and here he pushes the pawn up 2 squares rather than 1. So there is a change in this opening from Magnus Carlsen, and Fabiano quickly darts his bishop out to g4, pinning that knight to the queen. We have totally different territory here in the third game of the match.
I think Magnus, in the break, he instructed his second, Peter Heine-Nielsen, to go watch all 43 hours of Fabiano's chessboard course, on fast forward and maybe double speed, just to figure out what to do against this opening.
Honestly, not a bad idea. Of course, we're exaggerating a bit, but to look at specific lines, see what Fabiano himself recommends. Maybe Fabiano wasn't completely honest with all of us. Maybe he kept some novelties to himself. But this is something that you should do if you're a chess player at this stage, at this level, where Anish Giri, Fabiano, whoever it is, releasing these video courses, you can actually gain insights into their repertoire.
And meanwhile, we see both sides castle. It's pretty much the end of the opening stage now, but the top players, they know all the plans in the ensuing middle game. Magnus just playing a really slow kind of setup here with white, not overly ambitious. I think he just wants to play himself into form, frustrated of course with the first 2 games, and still pressure on Fabiano to fully equalize his black, to either clarify the center, break out in the center, or to just activate the rest of his pieces. But I'm excited. This is shaping up to be a really tense middle game.
And Fabiano has shown a tendency just to slide his rook on over when they're pawn tension like this. But Fabiano, he's thinking right now, so maybe he is successfully taken out of all of his preparation. Now he's on his own.
And it's a good idea to slow down. Once you've made these moves, you push the pawn to b5, your bishop has come out to g4. Now there are these little moves, right? You start with a knight jump to a5, you sidestep with the rook to the b file. At the right moment, you want to break open on the queen side with the b pawn. So it's really a good moment that Fabi has slowed down, and it will decide how this middle game progresses depending on Fabi's approach over the next few moves. Magnus looking relaxed.
journey with his knight.
Can you continue the journey, or is there a killer blow on the spot? Are there sacrifices? Does knight take spawn with the idea of queen sliding over to the king side while it's on the board? If the king takes the knight, queen g4, is that the killer move?
That's game over. There's nothing that Magnus can do. His king side is in shambles. He drops not just a pawn, but his defensive resources. And the rook is going to slide in here for black as well, unless his king becomes vulnerable. Fabiano, he's just in charge. He can take that knight with his queen even. He's up a pawn at minimum.
Game over. Simply no way Magnus Carlsen survives this one. We saw him lean back in shock as knight takes g2. That knight sacrifice appeared on the board, and it wasn't a surprise. It felt like something was brewing for a long time. The evaluation bar was stubbornly stuck in the middle, but we were saying it. Momentum black, momentum black. He takes with the queen. No risk attached to this at all. He's a pawn up, and he's about to cash in on the second pawn on f2.
3 pawns. He's going to take on f2, a queen trade will happen, then his rook will take the pawn on b2 as well. It's going to be 3 extra pawns for Fabiano Caruana in an endgame. Completely hopelessly lost for Magnus.
And he goes for it. Magnus is going to need more of the miracle that he survived in game 1. I don't see that happening. Fabiano Caruana really bringing his A game today. Magnus Carlsen is about to go down in game 3.
To go down in
Look
flames.
at him, he looks away.
It looks like Wesley So just gave up the pawn next to his king with check, and Evo Bar didn't react, so some craziness happening on the right-hand side. We'll get to it, but all attention is on Fabiano Caruana, just a couple moments away from beating the world #1 Magnus Carlsen.
Look at Magnus on the camera, just frustrated there, just throwing his pieces down, the pieces he was fiddling with. He looks ready to get out of here, he looks ready to resign. White's king marching forward, but what's the plan? There simply is none. Black's b pawn is going to soon march down that board.
He's not giving any chance to Magnus to jump in with that knight to f5 first, kicks the rook out of the 7th rank, and now the b pawn will arrive on b4. Fabi playing extremely solid, giving absolutely no hope here.
Pins that knight. Oh, that's just nasty because the knight can't move anymore, and the rook trade is completely losing. He can push that b pawn at long last.
Yep, he's going to do it. And a bit of a mirror image, I just want to say on the board right now. Black in both of the games has a dark squared bishop versus a knight. Black both the games has a pawn on b5, a passed pawn on b5. It's as if the players are kind of watching each other right now. Magnus coming in with the white king. The other board getting dramatic as well.
Very dramatic. There was an e6 that was played and it was completely ignored. That is high nerves by Nordebek.
What an amazing decision there. It looks like pawn on the right-hand side, on the right board, pawn takes pawn is checked, but that queen on a2, it can actually capture that pawn, so you're not losing the house. What a find by Nordebek Bustar. On the left-hand side of our screen, we just saw Fabi. He brings his king to g8. If the white king goes up diagonally, it looks like it's in the checkmate net, but the black one can kick the king away, so that king will survive, and unfortunately for Magnus, it doesn't look like he will survive, but the b pawn at long last is going up the board.
And now the bishop dominates the white knight as well, and Magnus will not have enough pieces to fight against the pawn. The bishop defends the b2 pawn next, and the rook will go down to c1 to wrap it up.
Just don't get checkmated. The black king is out on its own. The good thing for, well, we see resignation. That one is over. Fabiano in control from start to finish.
Fabiano Caruana takes the second win and the